maybe some of the other suburb cities, but in Phoenix, I cannot go anywhere without anybody recognizing me because of the campaign signs that were out. So thank you.
Christian, Christian been hanging with me, on and off. I would say, wasn't you with us? Yeah, for the 2024, like right before, like the whole year, you were telling people about precinct. You used to be a frequent visitor in here. So Christian is actually boots on the ground. He's a real deal. He got. I mean, did you get my question to you was how many precinct committee members did you actually help out in your local area? Like, because I know you was going around getting people and educating people on that. Did you have a lot of new precinct committee chairmen?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep,
okay, good.
we signed up 350 new precinct committeemen just in Maricopa County, and there were, of course, there are 15 counties in Arizona, so we signed up other people in other counties in the state, and also credit to Isaiah Washington, who is the Gray Anatomy star. He held a space, and we signed up multiple Black new precinct committeemen in multiple states and multiple counties. Credit to Isaiah Washington, and then credit to you, Patriot, as well. That people did sign up when we made the space and we focused it on that, and I provided them with the information, and the people follow through, and they got appointed.
Wow, we might have to do that again. Then that's what we're gonna be doing. Uh,
Get
Reaper.
Isaiah in for your space with
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get him in there.
Pamela.
Yeah, because he in Texas now. Isaiah's actually in Texas in Dallas, like 3 hours down the road from me now. So me and him gonna have to link up. And Mr. Silent, he I don't know if y'all know Mr. Silent, but he's a big deal in Harris County. He's a big, like a capital BIG. Big. He's humble, but he's a big deal out here. So and again, you guys, like we've been unknowingly funding endless wars and all this stuff. So when these people come in here and these candidates come in here and they ask for donations and stuff, I would definitely donate to them on account of if they're America first, I don't mind trying to get as much help to them as possible because it does matter. A lot of people came here while Christian was in here last year and year before saying there will be no election, and me and Christian was like, nah, there's gonna be an election. We need precinct committee members. They never wanted there not to be more elections. They just wanted to show everybody how the election system actually works because it hasn't worked the way it was supposed to for so long because these people do everything unconstitutional and unlawful that you can imagine. Everything. Look at the federal judges. Look at them. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they did. Trump declared the MS-13 and several other gangs terroristic organizations, and these federal judges decided to take it in their own hands and say, "Hey, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna aid the enemy. We're gonna aid the enemy," and they continuously do it. That's just a prime example of how tyrannical these people have been since they've been in office. And me and Christian are in border states. Jenny, I think Jenny is in a border state. Scorpio, she was in New York. I think New York could be considered a border state because nobody talked about the northern border. We talked about the southern border. We didn't talk about the northern goddamn on border. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I do want to make you understand there will be a 2026 election. I'm telling you, up from the highest, I've heard from a lot of people, reliable sources, they are absolutely going to have a 2026 election. And it is very important, you guys, that you either become a precinct committee member or that you try your best, try your hardest to figure out what your local politicians are about, see what their agenda is, and put them where they need to be put at to make changes in your local community. It does start at the local level first, and then we move up, right? So let's get it going. Scorpio, just deal me. What you got, Scorpio? What you got?
Okay, so for Pamela, I found two tweets under your highlights and I retweeted them. I put them up in the nest, but I want to just read really quickly some significant things on your bio. So long for U.S. Senate, Illinois, sovereignty and border security, save family farms, stop one size fits all identity politics, eliminate income tax, free speech and constitutional rights, protect and nurture life, defend parental rights. And she's a doctor. She is actually an occupational therapist. So I love your profile, and I also put up your donation link.
Where's it at? Where's the tweet at that you reposted for? Oh, I see it.
After, yeah. So, well, she just added one as well, so I'll retweet that one. And
Well, look,
Christian,
I'm gonna put Pamela and Christian on my notifications real quick. Why don't we just put their page on our notifications, people like that? I think I had Christian's notifications up, but Christian, you're a shadow man. They got some type
I
of
have
shadow
both
man,
of them.
brother. I put your notifications on, so when y'all post something, I'll be reposting y'all to information. And y'all make sure y'all repost it. You know what I'm saying? Even if they're not from your states, anything helps you guys. In Illinois, Chicago is listen, man. The murder rate and all that stuff, like that, it got crazy. It got hectic out there in Illinois, man. It's a lot of corruption out there with Pamela. So we with you 100%. I'm in Texas, but whatever I could do to help you out, we definitely will be trying to help you out in this space and promote you guys. And hopefully y'all can hold spaces and open up your own spaces, and we'll bring the crowd in there and, do it like that too. We'll do vice versa. You know what I'm saying? The people that need a voice and need the bullhorns don't have them. You know what I mean? Like, we listen to these fake politicians. Oh, I'm gonna do this and that. But the people that need the voices, they don't have no voice for real. Because they're against the establishment. Christian was in the belly of the beast. Like, he was talking about precinct committeemen when Joe Biden was in office, when it was unpopular. That was, I mean, if you want to talk about checkmate, Christian, tell everybody in this space what the power that the precinct committee member chairman has. Actually, tell them what they're important for, real quick, if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
So the importance of a precinct committeeman, which is a voting member of a political party, and it may be called a precinct chair or a precinct delegate or a central committee member or a town member or a precinct, some other type of precinct position. Those positions are what qualify
One
individuals.
second, Christian. One
Yeah.
second, real quick. Reaper, can you pull Rob Cunningham up? He said he was requesting. If you see,
Yes, sir. By the way, Patriot, whenever you said vice versa, it made me think about that Pastor Troy song, vice versa. So I just thought I'd tell you that.
yeah, I know that song. That's a good song. Go ahead, Christian. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. So these positions at the precinct level, or if you're in a town or parish, this is where the power resides. So whenever you have a first-time candidate, a incumbent running for reelection, or a elected official who's moving up to a higher office, every single time they always go back to the political party to qualify for running for office every 2, 4, or 6 years. That happens. And no matter what is going on, they do that because they need signatures to qualify, and they have to go through the party in order to either get reacclimated with the members inside the party, or to have events or to raise money. But always the signatures qualifying for the ballot, that is always a requirement. They always do that. And then the power that a precinct committeeman has once a person is in office, we hold tremendous power because we can, if you are a voting member inside the party, a precinct committeeman or another precinct position, you can actually remove that person from their office using the power of censure. This has been successfully executed by myself 3 times on 3 different rhinos inside the Arizona state legislature, where I used the power of precinct committeemen and censures, and we removed 3 elected establishment rhinos out of the legislature. Also, Margot, who's on here on X and other platforms, she's inside the North Carolina GOP. Margot took my advice on getting a censure against U.S. Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina, and what happened? She got the NCGOP to pass the censure against Thom Tillis, and Thom Tillis is on his way out the door. He's gone. They actually banned him from running for a primary, so he could not run for re-election. That's the power that you have inside the party. And that is the importance of being involved. And it's fun because you get to do things, other than getting acclimated with people in your community or in your town or in your county. But you also get to do things that are very empowering. And you get to also learn a lot about your government, about who's actually representing you. And keep in mind, it's not just U.S. senators that come to your party or your meeting that you would have for your committee. You will have school board members, all other different types of people. Some governors still go to many of these meetings. All other different types, sheriff candidates running for sheriff, and dog catcher, and you name it, any type of elected official that is inside your state, prosecutor, attorney general, whatever, they are going through that political party. So that's why you want to be in one of these positions, because you would be determining who gets to stay in office. That is tremendous power. That is tremendous authority. And one last thing, when we don't use this, when we're not in these seats, and I'll give you some quick data. 77 million Trump voters voted in the 2024 election. When you start going through many of these GOP committees and you take a look at how they're voting on specific things, specific resolutions, or even their positions on some candidates or some issues, you find out that most of the GOP committee is 80% against the Trump voter base. So you have 77 million Trump voters. 80% of the GOP committee is against the Trump voters. You have 200,000 vacancies in the whole GOP across all 50 states. So, and when you really break down some of that data, we're only talking about maybe anywhere between 20 to 40,000 actual Trump voters. So you got 20 or 40,000 Trump voters inside the GOP, but 77 million voting in the presidential 2024 election. There's a disconnect. There's a problem. And the Trump voters have to, and I'll just say it this way, it is a necessity. It is vital. It is critical for Trump voters to get involved inside political parties. Otherwise, you voting every 2 or 4 or 6 years is not enough. Sending emails to Congress, calling Congress is not enough. Showing up to the government at the Washington D.C. Capitol or at your state legislature, at the Capitol there, or at the governor's mansion, that is not enough. You need to be inside the political power. Thank you.
Beautifully said. Rob, honey, if you go out and come back in, it should beam you up. You'll turn into Scotty. That's what I call that, by the way. You know how you do the slingshot engaged on the road? I call it the beam me up, Scotty. But thank you so much, Christian. That was beautifully said. Smoke, go ahead, and then do we want Scorpio to still play that video, Patriot?
Yeah. Let's Scorpio, go ahead and play that video. And like I said, I got my notifications on for you and Pam, Miss Pamela, and I will DM y'all after this space is over. I'll set that space up and I'll DM it to y'all, and y'all could repost it on your wall. And again, if you know any America First people that are going to be running. Let's invite them. I'll try to get Isaiah Washington in here. Try to get quite a few people in here to get people familiar with everybody. It's not about what you know always. It's about who you know, right? All right, go ahead, Scorp. How you doing? Go ahead and play that video.
All right, it is 6 minutes long. Mute me at any time you want to pause. And thumbs up if you can hear.
Big, beautiful 4th of July that is 2025 is different, folks. It's bigger than our annual celebration of American pride. It is bigger than our undying reverence for those visionary founding fathers that placed America on a collision course with destiny. You see, today in many ways marks an end of the first 250 years of our constitutional republic. And we are here to tell the ghost of Benjamin Franklin. Yes, sir, we have kept our republic, but barely. America has survived a crucible. A former president in Donald J. Trump, re-elected president while under siege from lawfare within our nation's courts. 3 failed assassination plots, including one that, statistically speaking, should have ended the president's life. And the backdrop to all of it, nearly 40 years of left-wing insanity that culminated in a Biden administration promising to build back better while proudly promoting open borders, persecuting their political opponents, and bankrupting the American dream. And so, yes, it is fitting that 250 years after our founders penned that timeless phrase, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, that today, President Donald J. Trump will sign the big, beautiful bill into law. After decades of making a covenant with a Democratic Party that never stops inventing new ways to put the American people last, President Donald J. Trump will break ties for the world to see with the political bonds that no longer serve our nation. His pen will help all of us renew the vows embedded in the citizenship of our nation that our Democratic friends on the other side of the aisle keep attempting to devalue. It all ends today, folks. America's independence. Now, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries has recklessly proclaimed to the world that this bill will kill people. He ignores the fact that people were already dying, that the American dream was dying, that the promise of our children was on life support. So no, this bill is not a death sentence. It's a lifeline. Right now, 24% of the income that people in the service industry make in New York State comes from tips. In Wisconsin, that number jumps to 28%. Wyoming, 33%. All of those individuals will now be receiving a better tomorrow because of this bill. All across this country, we have people that work overtime to serve their families. The big, beautiful bill gives each of them a $12,500 deduction to keep that overtime cash in their pockets for every hour they spend away from their families. That's nearly 40 million Americans who will wake up tomorrow with brighter days and bigger bank accounts than yesterday, none of whom could find a single Democrat to vote for that American Renaissance. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt created Social Security, the foundational program of the American social safety net, he famously said, we have rich man security and we have poor man security. And the government owes equal obligation to them both. See, Democrats, they love to tout the man. They love to tout the programs. But they have clearly forgotten about the message. The Social Security Trust and the Medicare Trust have been on pace to run out of money around 2033, right around the time that the baby boomer generation needs those checks they work so hard for the most. And the Democratic Party that touts FDR has been so busy trying to change the demographics of our country that they fail to realize their politics are bankrupting the American dream for the citizens who have called this country home legally. And so that is how they can look
icyo gihe nta nubwo
at the 40 million
ntabyirinze urumva
Americans that just got a break on their overtime pay and the tipped workers that just got the taxes on their tips thrown out and say with a straight face that work requirements and citizenship are somehow un-American for Medicaid. So no, folks, this is not a normal 4th of July. This is a new American declaration, an America First declaration, to make a new covenant with the freedom that was promised to carry us forward for the next 250 years. You know, folks, I think
Wow, that was amazing. Now, who could be against that big, beautiful bill?
Not I.
That was a nice thorough breakdown of what it is. And again, the naysayers on this out, man, they dropped the ball big. Once again, they dropped the ball big time on this one. They didn't just barely drop it; they dropped it all away because it definitely benefits American people and it hurts illegals in the establishment. If you were on this app saying, "Oh, the big beautiful bill is gonna," you are ill-informed, and respectfully, you are ill-informed. And this bill is to get America back on track. We sat there for the last 4 years and got drained with the Biden administration with policies. And you guys y'all wasn't even critical of that. The same people they wasn't even saying nothing about what Biden was doing. But now Trump is in place. I don't think they realized that, you guys, but they were pumping mainstream media narratives on here about the Iran and Israel war and also about the big beautiful bill, back to back. And they got proven wrong, and now they're trying to, well, I like Trump and this. No. You don't like Trump. You're not trying to make sure everything's okay because you're not looking into stuff and reading it. Reading it and understanding is what's needed going forward. If you got caught in the crossfires and you listen to these naysayers because they had a big influence on here, read the documentation yourself. You know what Trump is hard on, the borders and restoring the republic. Why would he go against that in this bill? Why? Think about it. You had people here saying, "Hey guys, Trump is trying to bring us into an endless war." Since when did Trump want to do that? Think about it. Anyway, go ahead, Corman.
Well, I think about that, and I think about how we were really consistent with our message, right? And that's what we have to be, very consistent with the message. We have people in here. We do our own research, and we always let people know, don't believe what I say. Take this and go do your own research and come back and let's discuss it, right? That's how we get people on board with us. And it's imperative that we have a consistent message. And that's what we've had in this space and the spaces that we have outside of, Patriot. But, you've always kept the consistent message. Our panel's always kept the consistent message. We have listeners that have been sitting down there for years that come up now and they join in the conversations. They're asking questions, and that's what we need and that's what we want. Welcoming, and we want to be able to guide them to the right direction, and that's what we're able to do. So winning all the way around is what we've done.
All right, you guys, let's go to Smoke real quick. And then let me see. Smokey the Bear. Let's go to Smokey the Bear and then Phantom. And we'll end this transmission. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. Go ahead, Smokey. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Patriot? So I've been listening, and there's a lot of good points being made.
Part of my biggest problem with the status quo with the government as is, if you look at it, for the past 20 years, I've been complaining because both parties are basically the same. They take very minuscule, small little sides, if you may, like abortion, which doesn't really affect the big picture, and they choose to squabble over it. While meanwhile, they're scratching each other's back and full of corruption and kickbacks. And that's what seeded the power, unfortunately, for the last probably 50 years. But when you're looking at it, I see this new Elon party coming. This has been like well overdue. So it's going to create a swing party, kind of like the Electoral College does with the swing states, where they're going to have to come to the reckoning where they're not doing what the people want and the people are fed up. So I see this being a beautiful thing. I see it more going into the Republican standpoint, the true Republican standpoint, and then being more fiscally conservative, which is the way we should be operating. A lot of the bullshit that you see on the mainstream media news, of course, they're funded by the same corruption that's been happening. It's a tool, it's a massive propaganda weapon when you're looking at it, and it's effective. It's shown to be effective. But the left on that side, and I'm not going to go one sided. I am a Republican by nature, right? But the left on one side, they've been playing the long game. They've gotten to the schools. They're indoctrinating our children to think in their ideals with the LGBTQ, everything else. Like, why are elementary school kids learning what gay, lesbian, all the? They're innocent. They don't fucking need to know that at that point in their life. But they are being force fed this garbage, and they're being pushed into the left's agenda. That's been happening since I was graduating high school, and it's disgusting. But on the other end of it, and I hate to say it, but it's true, the far left and the far right are both in each other's pockets. They're both got problems and they both need to figure it out. What this third party is going to do is going to force them to come to the table and listen to the American voice. And I have been saying for years, the bipartisan problem that we've had is just continuing. It is not going to stop until A, you get rid of the parties, or B, you throw a disruptor, which is what we see with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Thank God for them, and I hope he's got his security team ready because the corruption's going to bite in. They don't like this at all. That's my point. I could go on for hours, but I'm not going to take too much of your time.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Make sure y'all got them notifications on again. And make sure y'all follow Pamela and Christian. And I will be setting up that space soon as I'm done. When I come up with the title, I'll be them. Matter of fact, if Christian, if you can DM me and Pam, you can DM me too. Just say anything. So I'll be able to DM y'all the space when this is over with and the time. And if something changes before then, let me know. I can reschedule the time. It don't matter. But I definitely want, I definitely want to do that space this Saturday and get as many of you guys in there as possible. If y'all know any buddies, bring them on in. Bam, you got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, if there is a plan, and we all know there is a plan, when Elon Musk created the Twitter handle America, which he created this America Party back in October, back when he was going on rallies with Trump. This is a planned strategy that we're seeing here. And what's going to happen is it's going to take right now it's 50-50. I don't consider myself Republican or Democrat. I consider myself motherfucking American. So I'm in the middle. I'm neither. That is exactly what's going to happen. It's going to take a percentage from the Democrats, a percentage, and it's going to be 60-20-20. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be 60% American Party majority and 20% Republican and 20% Democrat. That's what's going to be left over when it's all said and done. Because there's more people like you and me that are right there in the center that we don't give a fuck about all the bullshit, all the trans ideologies and all that. We just care about this country. So that's what's exactly going to happen. All the people that really love America, they're all going to jump into this party. This party is really going to represent the America First agenda. And all those rhinos they talk about, the dinos, all of them, they're all going to be exposed. They're not going to be elected into this new party because we already know who the enemy is. These people are the enemy. They've been in politics like Biden for 50 years. These people are the enemy of the state. We are not electing them into this new party.
Can I go, Patriot?
Oh yeah, go ahead, go right ahead, and
Well,
then we'll close it too.
yeah, well, I want to say this: caring about our nation is caring about the trans ideology, because it spreads through our nation, and it affects our children. The children are the future, and so we have to protect our children. We have to we got to make this nation safe again. We got to make this nation great again. We got to make this nation healthy again. We have so many things that we have to do and make sure that it comes through. We are the people. The strongest three words out there is in the Constitution. It begins with "We are the people," and we have to stand up for our children that are voiceless. They're not being heard. So we stand for them, and we have to do that. We have to focus on every part of this, because it all makes up what our nation stands for, which is a beautiful thing. But we have to take and get rid of the evil and get rid of the indoctrination in the schools. Our children have to be prepared for what's to come, and that's the future that is standing in front of them. Right, and we're here to ensure that is going to happen. And so, I just want to make sure we clear that up. No matter what party you stand with, you got to stand for the children, because they're the future of this nation, and we got to make sure that they are taken care of and they're not being indoctrinated. And this trans ideology is taken out of the schools. It should have never entered the schools, and that we're being participant in the schools. We need to be on school boards. We need to be at every PTO meeting. We need to show up and have lunch with our children. We need to find out exactly what the teachers are teaching. We need to pay more attention to the schools and the teachers. I think we got real lazy there, and we're just taking our children, dropping them off, picking them up, dropping them off, picking them up. We can't do that anymore, because we see what happens when we do that. So we got to really focus on our children. They're really the number one thing here. Thanks.
All right, guys, that'll conclude today's transmission, broadcast, whatever the hell you want to call it. I appreciate special shout out to Christian and Rob for coming in. I hope we'll get Rob back in here tonight. Y'all make sure y'all turn on my notifications. I will be hopefully back on tonight later on. We'll be talking about continuity of government, and how Q is becoming more popular because of what 45 is doing. 45-47. Dash 48 for the haters out there. Without any further ado, hold on. We got Christian. Christian wants to say one more thing. Go ahead, Christian. You got it. Go ahead, Christian.
Thanks. I just couldn't pull off mute. Okay. So I just got a message from Marlenis L. Hernandez, and she says that she's running for Congress in CD5 in North Carolina. Maybe she just wasn't able to come up, but she just wanted me to mention that she previously ran for lieutenant governor in 2024, and she just wanted me to mention that she's running for Congress and in North Carolina against Virginia Fox. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, hopefully she could come to the space on Saturday, right? Tell her tell her to come. We'll get her up here.
Appreciate it. Yep.
All right, thank you again, Chris. All right, you guys, I'll see y'all later. Enjoy your productive Sunday. Definitely eat healthy. Do what you got to do. Positive energy on everybody. And again, man, America is winning, winning, winning. And it really is. She's winning. Thank you, guys. See you later.
He didn't even care to get out of Gaza. He wasn't even responding to the deals. I mean, he could have just surrendered on, let's say not October 9th, let's say December. Okay, let's say he tried to hold it off for 3 months. You could have surrendered and just been like, okay, we're putting our guns down. We'll give you back the hostages. I mean, people don't know that they offered the people who took hostages $10,000 in a free apartment. So when they brought too many dead bodies and too many hostages, they just killed the Palestinians that were regular civilians and some Hamas at the front of Gaza. How do we know this? Because when Israel first started coming in, they were looking for bodies, and there's these huge garbage piles in Gaza because they don't handle their garbage well. So they put it in northern Gaza, these ginormous garbage piles, and they found a ton of bodies in there. Well, a lot of the bodies were Palestinian men. They're like, what the fuck is going on? Why? Well, then we come to find out, because people were leaking it from inside Gaza, that they had made promises of $10,000 per hostage. We know this because they tried to sell the head of a soldier on eBay. It was made worldwide attention. This dad was they were looking for this kid's head. It was advertised on eBay. This is public. You can Google this. I don't need to make anything up. The truth is shocking enough. I don't need to add any extra. Okay, and they were holding it in an ice cream shop. Okay, the head was found, returned so they could bury the kid. Insane. Insane. We saw the ads from eBay. We're like, what the F? But I didn't know that this is a normal practice of what they do, because they did it in other countries, ISIS and all these other stuff that they were doing in Afghanistan, Al Qaeda, in Africa with Boko Haram and all this nonsense. This is their thing. They like to behead people or take their parts. They would cut off the right hand and the left arm. It's like some Islamic bullshit thing we learned about from the Islamic guys who know about all this terrorism stuff. They would take the left arm or the right leg, whatever they were doing, they would do. Doesn't matter. This, you can Google this, as they've been doing it, I guess, for over 30, 40, 50, 100 years. This is what Islam does when they conquer and they take over towns and everything. Not my cup of fucking tea, but this is what they do. So we find out that there's all these bodies. Well, turns out they didn't want to pay all the people. They took too many hostages. You know how we know they took too many hostages? Because the leaders of Hamas went on TV, on Al Jazeera and all their Arabic channels, because they knew what was coming for them, because they overdid it. How do we know? They showed us videos of them live streaming it into Qatar and them watching it and then them going and praying. All these are public videos. They filmed everything they did with their own cameras and GoPro, and they put it on Telegram. And now there's like all these websites that preserve their evidence. Some are more graphic, some are less graphic. But you don't need to question that it's some Jewish conspiracy. It's your fucking GoPro cameras, your videos. And then we have your camera systems inside of Gaza of you planning it afterwards, what to do, and them talking amongst themselves, and their audio being recorded. And you can see their clear faces that they're Palestinians in Gaza with Hamas leadership. And then they get all their bases that were underneath the hospitals had all their information. So every time they would go into a hospital, they would take all the tech from underneath to tell us what was going on. And it was all made public. And you know what? It wasn't just the Israelis that have to view all that stuff. The Five Eyes have to view it. The Israelis were required to report to the Americans, the Australians, and the English all the intel. The French were there also, by the way. They needed to see all the intel as well, because they were concerned maybe there were other terrorist attacks plotting. And they need to know who's funding the money from all the European countries, because they also have counterterrorism units in all these European countries, right? Especially when within 2 days of it happening, you had protests happening all over Europe simultaneously and all over the United States, okay, with maximum coordination and posters made already. So if anybody was normal, that's considered a national security threat. That doesn't happen out of nowhere. Israel had not yet responded. They were still fighting in Sderot with hostages inside of a building, trying to get people back, and they still hadn't even found out all the bodies or figured out how many terrorists were still in Israel within the 3 days that they started protesting already. Israel didn't even go into Gaza to respond yet. And they were already saying that there was all these deaths in Gaza. Nobody had even responded yet. The army didn't even go in yet. They didn't even shoot anything over yet. There was no special units in yet. That's the ironic part of all of this. And everybody was already screaming genocide, and nobody even touched them yet. The genocide was happening in Israel. And they were looking for these 5,000 guys or 3,000 guys that turned on their chips in their phone. Because there was 3,000 new phones that turned on the morning of October 7th, because they were using their other phones to communicate when they were in Israel. Because they could have cell service in Israel versus what they use in Gaza, which they have like $1,600 iPhones in Gaza. Like you can see it on Imshin's site. You can see all their cell phone shops all the way through yesterday, what they have going on there. There's no shortage. So somebody's smuggling that shit in. Brand new iPhones, brand new. Not like the old ones. Brand new cars. Like, go look at the videos. Not for me. For yourself so you can get educated. My point is I see this interview and they're like, oh yeah, for sure he would regret it. No, not Sinwar, not the guys who started the October 7th. Maybe the other people, the wealthy ones sitting in Qatar eating lobster and champagne and living in Doha, living in Turkey, living in Kuwait, living very wealthy lives, billionaires worth more than Donald Trump. Shocking, but yes. Off our US tax dollars, European dollars, UN dollars. I mean, these guys were grifters. They would always start these little fights so they could grift more money and say, oh my God, look, they destroyed all our streets, send us money. You cause this shit, and then you expect everybody else to pay for it. And then you blame the people that are trying to defend themselves for doing genocide when there's no genocide. So you order 20,000 silicone dolls from China, and you have people that are trained in makeup and art to make it seem like these dolls are real children, and then we have to see crazy pictures every day. And like anybody of us who has worked in medicine like I have for 20 years, you know what a body looks like, and a baby's body when it's shredded from a bomb. It doesn't look like those pictures, that the fake ones that they're putting out, and they're walking in people shaking dead babies' bodies. Nobody does that. Okay. When your child dies, you don't run around having 17 cameras filming you at the entrance of a hospital, all ready to go as the ambulance slowly pulls up, with people coming off. Come on, it's enough already. Like people have to have discernment. It's insane. And now
Yeah.
they're recruiting 13 to 14-year-old boys, and I have to then see people saying, oh my God, they're killing all these 13 to 14-year-old boys. They're being recruited. Their parents are letting them go to do this stuff because there's a sickness, a complete mental sickness that they've put into these poor kids through all this schooling through UNRWA. But that's also not our fault. That's not anybody's fault because they let it go on for years and they made money. And then you have doctors holding hostages in their houses because they're all part of Hamas. Because to have any leadership position or anything in Gaza, you're all affiliated with Hamas. How
You
many
have to
people in
debate.
this video?
You have to debate Myron. You have to debate Myron.
Oh,
So
yeah, that's what Max Prime said. I don't need to debate
I know
men.
Gary. I know Gary Wells,
Yeah,
but yeah,
but for Myron, it's a source of his income. This isn't something for me. For me, I'm worried about the existential health of the world. I'm worried about America. I don't care to make money on this. I could prefer to clean toilets than sell out my own country by selling my own people the wrong information and radicalizing them, and allowing a KGB op from the 50s and 60s that got morphed into God knows whatever it is now, some kind of revolutionary movement, to make money off of it. Like to pay for my luxury apartment and condo or house or whatever, and my girlfriend and my car. I would prefer to die than to do that to my American people. I gave up my very, very well earned profession for 18 months right now to do this, and I don't even know why. Because I saw an existential threat to my country in America and the Jews in Israel. And I know what happens when you make a country communist or you propagandize them, because you did it during COVID. You know how many people I saw die during COVID? Because I was working in the hospitals and I was fighting against the COVID vaccine mandates simultaneously working in COVID. And we couldn't do anything. So then this happens? You think I want to see them radicalize and manipulate a whole new generation of people with propaganda? It's insane. They want Americans to hate each other. They want Americans to hate their own country. And they want to pretend like everything they see is not real, but everything they see from the most despotic countries in the world is 100% real. I'm sorry, I'm not going to eat Al Jazeera. You want to tell me CNN's bad and all the media's bad, but Al Jazeera is okay? I mean, come on already.
no,
Like,
Al Jazeera is
honestly,
trash. But
it's all
I
trash.
think it would be great it would be great entertainment for everybody to have finally someone, because I'm gonna tell you, I agree 100% with Gary on this. Like, you've got to be probably like the best debater regarding that topic. I don't even know why they don't put you
No,
more
my
out there to.
they won't debate
It's
her. I mean,
crazy.
debate her.
No, they want to. I mean, he comes into my
Yeah, but
space
they will.
quite often.
They've fold and they leave so quickly the moment you show facts. They're like, "Oh, we're out." They'll argue on the most minute possible thing. Like if you get one detail wrong, kind of like the date or the number, or maybe there was 10 people that died, but there was actually four. They'll twist that and just keep circling around that problem that you're wrong there and ignore the rest of the facts. I've seen them debate so many times. I even talked to those type of people and debated them. They don't care. They just want to push their viewpoint and just say, you know, the Israelis control the world and they're killing all the Palestinians. That's all they want to keep showing. I mean, keep saying. That's all they want to keep propagating.
Josie, when it comes to somebody's income and they make money off something and it's their niche thing, right? It doesn't matter. It's for me. I'm not debating when I'm saying these things. I'm trying to educate people. You can research everything. I put all the details and facts. Barbie puts all the threads. You can double check all the work. If there's something wrong, come and tell me, and I'll edit it. I'll change it. I'll correct it. Whatever it is. But I'm a fact based person, right? So I can't sit and argue with a man, anyways, because listen, I heard him what he was saying yesterday to Jennifer. I think it was yesterday, or the day before. He's very rude to women. I'm not going to put up with that behavior. And I'm going to say things that I shouldn't say to somebody. And, you know, and like I cover Sudan all the time, what's going on in Sudan, and extensively, and how they killed all the Christians. And now it's Muslims on Muslims killing each other and the atrocities. But nobody wants to cover Africa. I cover it often in my spaces. We have Reverend Washington that comes in. I did a whole space with the Somali and Somaliland people that came in out of nowhere. I have the Baluch and the Kurdish. I don't know all this stuff, so I learn it and I triple check what they say and I check the facts and I find it interesting, but I don't go too deep in certain things, right? But I can generally tell, like General Washington is an amazing Christian man. He's an amazing American. He's also very pro-Israel. He's got an amazing family, a lovely wife, so he writes very well. He's a smart man. He knows everything about Muslim Brotherhood. So if he's telling me something about going on in the Congo, I don't need to like dig into every single detail. I can generally research it. I understand what was happening with Rwanda and Congo. I was covering the civil war there 4 or 5 months ago. Now Trump made the deal. I was covering what was going on in South Africa. You know, it's what's funny to me is he knows what he's saying is not right, Myron. That's the problem. So it's not
Can I
even
just
illogical. It's not like he's
I
miseducated.
apologize, but I have to chip in here for a minute. I just need to say something here as a non-partisan, quasi-American of Indian descent. Josie, one thing I love about America is how open its people are. They're genuinely very open-minded, the average American, and this is a contrast from the Europeans who pretend. I think there's a lot of pretentious behavior on behalf of the Europeans, but Americans are a
True.
different. They come cut from a different cloth altogether,
Hmm.
and I appreciate that. I know that you were a regular. You've been a regular to the other side, but now I see you sitting here and taking points on board that Stealth is making. And it is testimony to your flexibility of opinion. And I think in that sense, you really espouse American values. That's great. But I would also, wager for you to consider that the person you're trying to argue for, a face-to-face debate, there's some basic, ground realities that are very hard to reconcile. For instance, his absolute disdain for women, like go make a sandwich and just sexualizing every woman that he talks to. Okay, that's besides the point. Let's put that aside. On facts, I did a couple of spaces to debunk or to understand if the charges that were being made against Israel and the IDF were actually they had some substance. And a couple of things that he said, it was really embarrassing when I sat down with a couple of my Jewish friends to take us through that it was actually a very phony comment. Now, for instance, he actually made this comment about the head of IDF actually protesting against the Israeli leadership and then being let go, and he cited a certain article that the basis was an article. And when we actually looked at the article, it sourced another article, it sourced another source, and we went to the original source. That source is not non-existent. There's something called Channel 14 which never existed anywhere. So it's things like that. And that's one. Then there's the other thing, about the dancing Israelis. I mean, what sort of bullshit you're basing your arguments on? So I mean, on facts, and also on the very very basic prerequisite of having a intelligible, a respectable opponent for debate. I think he just gets struck down. And of course, what she said about influencers, and I'm not even going to his religious affiliations. It's pretty clear what he, I'm not even going to remark on that. But I would really request, because I see that you're flexible. You are the average American that I really love, from the bottom of my heart, because just because you're just so open minded. So I would request you to consider that. That's all. Cheers.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, I like to take all opinions into consideration. I think that you have a right to um an opinion, and if it's something we disagree on, we just disagree on it. And as to me, is as long as it's displayed openly in an honest and good faith manner, I have absolutely no problem with it. For me, what the problem that I have is very often there's a lot of people that would have like hypocrisy or just ride with one side then snake the other. That's the kind of stuff I can't stand. But if somebody is 100% honest with what they think and their beliefs, I'm totally okay with it.
Yeah, but
Um,
the problem with that though is that an opinion would be like, I like the color green because green is nice. Myron would be like, that's not green, that's red. And he'll fight you over the fact that green is red. Not the opinion of green, but the fact that the color that he thinks is green is red.
well, is
And
it
that's
green
the
or red?
problem people that's the problem with those type of people. And that's the hole they trap you in when you're trying to argue with them.
Well, the
It's not
color is
really
factual. It's not an opinion, though.
that's my whole point. It's that something can be factual, but you can't change your opinion on something that's fact like the whole color
Facts are
point
facts.
is
Opinions are different.
right, but Myron bases his opinion on loose facts that are not even factual. So if he had actual facts, then his opinion would be more like in line to what Stelp is saying, or at least close to that. His opinion would be more geared towards, okay, just like what a rock and roller said, okay, the IDF, let's look into it. Let's actually deep dive into it. Let's get the facts out and then make our opinion. He doesn't do that. It's like a self-eating snake, the way that the argumentative way that they argue. That's what you
You've
say.
only
his
watched shorts,
his
haven't
his
you?
typical his typical algo. I tell you how it is. When you sit down for a debate with him on a neutral panel, when you actually trading information with him, he will refute that, and then when you start giving him sources, he starts making ad hominems. Now, a few months back, Barbie was here. She was making a point in one of these spaces, and when he got found out, he was attacking her. Oh, are you a fat woman? He was judging her on the basis of her voice, and trying to like objectify her physically and put her down, which had got nothing to do with the debate. I mean, forget about whether the point he had was valid or not. I mean, just attacking somebody. So based on a visualization of the body based on the voice. I mean, how is that relevant to the debate? So that is his escape route, and that's happened in more than one panel. And then he goes about, oh, what am I doing over here? I would have more followers, listeners in my space, and it just barges out. So it's typical of him. And I don't know if you've seen this pattern or not, because it's very, very, very easy to get mesmerized. I'll give him his credit for he is a good speaker. He has got it worked out. I think it's well rehearsed, but the basis itself is very questionable. That is what we are trying to talk about. The people on both sides who are talking about facts, but facts really are not facts. If you drill it down. So just
Facts are
consider
not
that, and I'll.
facts.
No, no, facts are not facts, as in your interpretation of facts. Like what he cited as a fact for the IDF claim didn't turn out to be a reputable source at all. It didn't. It was a phony source. It didn't exist.
So how
When
do
we
we know if a
actually
source
drilled
is
down,
reliable or not?
that source did not exist. The core source from which the news was being cited, that source just did not exist. And
What do
that's
you
not
mean it
just
didn't
one point.
exist? You just like made up a post? Like made it up, Photoshop, everything?
No, the article, like like
The article,
not the
yeah.
Daily Wire. I'm trying to think of like Axios, or the Hill or Washington Post will say, we have a source, like they'll write an article, right, saying that you don't like chicken, and it'll link something that says like what the source is for you not liking chicken. You click that, and it goes to another article from like Axios saying they heard from someone's grandmother that you don't like chicken, and you click that source, and that leads you to another article which says, yeah, we just heard that she might not like chicken from somebody. It's like 5 articles deep of sources before you actually get to the original source of it's a nothing burger. Like it was nothing. It was just made up out of thin air.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what. If you want to like get prepared, I'm gonna give you some time if you want. And if you can find me like the exact like examples, like a concrete example of what he actually said and the claims that were so-called
Okay,
phony,
Dancing Israel.
I will sit on a space and listen to you for as long as you want if you can provide actual like evidence.
I can give you evidence right now. He sources the Dancing Israelites or the Dancing Israels. This was during 9/11 when the Twin Towers were hit by 2 planes. The FBI noticed that these Israelis, somewhere out in the distance, taking some videos or something like that. They arrested these Israelis. They interviewed them. They did a whole bunch of stuff, and it came out it was nothing. It was
No,
just
it was a
suspicious,
woman. It was a woman that said she saw them and she used
right?
binoculars and they were across at a parking lot and there was a white
Right.
van. Do you
But I'm
remember?
saying that Myron has this posted on his X feed. He has it listed as one of the things of like Israelis were the ones that caused 9/11. And if you look at it, he sources some FBI documentation. And if you look at the FBI documentation, it goes based off a woman who saw these men dancing and looking through binoculars. Then the FBI, through the NYPD, arrested these men, interviewed them, and found nothing. They were
No, they
just
found something about
watching.
them, but it's
No,
just
I have looked through those documents like 100 different times backwards. I even have a security clearance to go check on those documents, and there's nothing in there. They just interview them. They did look suspicious. That's very true. The woman's claims, just like if you call 911 and I say, I report this lady dancing in the street and I hang up, 911 is just going to go investigate that. That's in the report of my initial response. And if you look through that, it's just nothing. It's just some Israelis that were watching the towers as they were hit. That means nothing. That literally means, how many, I was there in 9/11. I was leaving school when the first plane hit. I didn't have a cell phone to take a video of it, but I could watch that first plane hit the tower as I was leaving school because I was skipping school. But besides the point, so am I an accomplice of like causing the towers to be hit? No, like that's my whole point. It's nothing. It's anecdotal in the sense that like it means nothing. It's literally pulled out because you're trying to connect a dot that's not cannot be connected. It just cannot be connected. And it's a source that they use all the time. Myron uses that source. I've seen him use it so many times, and I'm been tired of just it is so stupid. And if you really read it from front to back, and you look at what's trying to be alleged, is nothing there. It's just like Myron would say, it's the Jews did this because Mossad had these agents on the ground. And when he says that Mossad had these agents, he has no source to that. His source is that the fact that they were reported and that they thought they were Mossad. That was the source of him claiming they were Mossad. Not that they are Mossad or anything close to that aspect of it at all. It was just because someone wrote in a report, someone said suspicious activity of Jewish people with binoculars dancing, and someone else in the FBI said, well, they could be Mossad, but that could, which changed into his debate as they are. And that's the problem.
okay.
Josie, once you through the drill of actually establishing whether he's right or not, I tell you what, you'll feel so betrayed and cheated that you believed him all this time. That's the feeling you're left with as somebody who sort of took him on face value. So this is just
I
a
never said
forewarning.
that I
It's really
believe
up to you.
anything that he
No, no,
said.
no. Don't take my me literally. I'm just saying the feeling when you actually trust somebody, and then you find out how off they are, off the mark they are. It's just that feeling. I just wanted to tell you, I'm not making a judgment
Well,
on
you
you.
know, like the day that I find out how of the mark he is, and I actually have clear evidence to prove him wrong, I will bring it up to him and say, "Hey, I think you're wrong, and this is exactly why." And you know what? I've done it before, and he actually changed his mind on what I brought up to him, which he rarely does, by the way. And Stealth, Gary actually called you very smart. I marked my calendar that
He
day
did.
because
He
that
did.
does
Yeah.
not. I never seen that happen.
I know. I
Never.
know. I
And
know. I know.
trust me, if like you think Myron is mean to women, like I mean, he's just a freaking appetizer compared to Gary. Like
Oh,
Gary is like, I mean, at least he's honest of what he thinks.
yeah.
Like he said it like it is. So I wouldn't even worry about it. Like you're educated. You guys actually agree on a lot of things, believe it or not, when it comes to gender roles. And like you don't rudely interrupt people. You have good manners. Like I really don't think it's a problem. I mean, Myron has been nothing but nice to me personally. So like
I don't
I don't
I
know
don't
a
think him
lot
as
of.
a no, like I don't know him personally, and to me, there's a lot that he says that I agree with too. So I just know he's wrong in certain areas, and he's totally wrong about that. That's my whole point in all of it. It's the same people who say that the United States allowed the Japanese to bomb Pearl Harbor. It's the most ludicrous thing because, conspiracies are sexy and the truth is boring.
Yeah, and you know, one of his opinion is that Islam aligns more with Christian values than Judaism. I absolutely freaking disagree with that like so much. And you know what? It's fine. It's just opinions. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have a good work ethic. Doesn't mean that um he's not a cool dude to talk to. Like sometimes you just disagree, and it's okay to disagree.
No, that's totally fine. Like I seen him, like I said, I've watched him a couple times. I like his when he's on Temple. He's more what is it, restrained, I guess you could say, um, in some of his outbursts. But other than that, it's just like there's some areas where he's just totally wrong in, and it upsets me because he has a big platform and he promotes that wrong viewpoint or ideology or just wrong facts altogether, and it's destructive because he supports or he says he supports Donald Trump and the movement of MAGA, and when you're facilitating lies like that, that's detrimental to what MAGA stands for and what our foreign policy should be. It really sets us back 1,000 feet. Like it sets us back so much because you can't have America first, and America first can't have in the sense what I'm trying to say. It's like we need Israel to be strong and independent to fix the Middle East. And when you have someone like Myron who's cutting the legs underneath Israeli politics by promoting lies or mistruths or half truths, it really hurts a lot of the MAGA movement. It really does.
So that are you saying that it hurts because people might disagree that we send aid to Israel?
Sending aid to Israel is a non-number. It means nothing. We send aid to a whole bunch of countries. So what's the point? Like just because we say aid to Israel means what? We send aid to Egypt. We send aid to the Congos. We send aid to Afghanistan and Iraq. We send aid even to Iran. We send aid
Okay, let me
to the
rephrase
European.
that. Let me rephrase that real quick. Does it mean that it would hurt the support from the public in order to have Israel's back on at the world stage?
It's like this. If you want the United States to be more of an isolationist, right? Because a lot of people have that mindset for some odd reason,
Mhm.
and I think it's dumb, but that's fine. If you want to have the United States to be more isolationist, you need to have allies that have big power and big weight to throw around to keep other regions secure and not just secure, but to keep ourselves secure. So you need to have someone like Israel combined with like Saudi Arabia in that region to keep the Middle East at least at peace or not, everyone killing each other there. We need to keep Japan and South Korea, and Taiwan, these three big countries in the Asia Pacific, to keep the Chinese at bay. We have to have these kind of countries propped up close to equal as the United States so we can just be dealing with our own stuff. But it's hard when you want to deal with what's in the country, which I agree we do need to do that. but at the same time have outwardly threats like Iran, which is the biggest outwardly threat to the United States, right next to China. Like they are just equally in partners. Russia is probably third place in that. But you cannot have a secure Middle Eastern region without the Israelis and the Saudis working together hand in hand to keep that region in peace. Because the Saudis can keep the Muslims in peace, and the Israelis can be there to put anyone in their place when they need to put their foot down. So, but we can't have that if we're constantly undercutting the Israelis all the time. It's not going to happen. It's the same thing when Trump tried to get the first Abraham Accords. Remember, the Abraham Accords was about reconciliation or reconciliation for Middle Eastern countries and Israel to come to terms so they can become good trading partners. And the one who didn't want that at all was Iran. They're the biggest opponent of that treaty because it means that they are going to be left in the dust. So what they do, they rile up their regional support, which is like the Houthis, the Gazans, the Lebanese, Hezbollah actually, but all of that to cause problems. And they've been doing it since 1979. It's not like a hidden agenda. It's been outwardly proposed by Iran since 1979, since they took power to keep that region in turmoil. You know, but how do you fix it, right? The idea is like, how do you fix it? And Trump's idea is like, well, if we can get the Israelis to be the powerhouse or the military powerhouse within that region and have like the Saudis to be like the negotiators, then we can have some form of peace within that region. But until those two things can get into place, we cannot. That's why everyone's attacking Israel, because Israel is that powerhouse to keep that region in peace. But again, you're going to have forces like Qatar or the UAE undermining a whole bunch of things.
Hmm.
You can put thumbs down.
Oh, did I thumbs down?
No. This is
Okay.
Z. But I'm telling you, that's how it is, because Lebanon can't do it because they have the Hezbollah. Don't even look at Gaza. You can't get it from Egypt because they're constantly at war within themselves. They're corrupt as hell, so Egypt has no backing to it. The Saudis are way too busy trying to be neutral. Qatar is too busy sleeping in bed with all the terrorists, so you can't trust them. So who is the partner in that region that you're going to trust?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that we get a sweet deal with the Saudis, but here's the thing is that they don't want to get involved with anything, and that's kind of what gets our deal secured as well. So I guess in this case, then yeah, Israel. And there's also the perspective that it was one of Trump's promise to that Iran would not be a nation that has a nuclear like enriched uranium. I don't know word for word, but it was a promise
Yes.
that he would
Said
put
that
a
Iran
stop
will
to
not
whatever
have a
was going
nuclear
on.
weapon. Iran will never
Yeah,
have a nuclear weapon. So,
yeah.
Joseph, if you listen to Trump's stuff from today, he stated at his meeting that he learned from the guys who did the strikes that they have been getting ready for this strike for over 20 years. So that's way before Trump came into office, obviously, right? They've been practicing for the strike inside of Iran against their nuclear plans for over 20 years, and he
Yeah,
talks
but it's
about it
like
in
it
detail.
didn't like it kind of just seems to me that when you take that into consideration, like what he did in 2015, pulling out of the Iran deal and everything. No,
The
not
Iran deal
2015.
was garbage.
He pulled out in 2017, and the Iranian deal was in happened in 2015, right when Obama got out. But um, like he kind of had Israel do the dirty work for him.
Yeah, but that
That's
Iran
kind of
deal, yeah, the Iran deal from Obama, if you look into it, was garbage. It accelerated the nuclear program in Iran. It
yeah. No, that's what I'm
accelerated it, and they
saying.
got
That's what
free
I'm
money out of
saying.
it.
They kind of just got the Israelis to do the job without really getting the US involved, which I'm like,
And
that
that's
kind of
fine.
adds up.
Yeah, but that's perfect because it works for the base of the MAGA party people who are like, we don't want no wars. Even though technically we're at war with Iran, people don't want to admit it, but we are. They've been killing soldiers, they've been supplying terrorists, they've been training terrorists, they've been doing a whole bunch of stuff. We've been technically at war with them, if you like or not. But however, using the Israelis, because the Israelis really know what's going down in Iran. Like Mossad's been in and out of that country a whole bunch of times, so it's perfect. Israel can show the world that they can do things like this within that region and keep it secure, and we get to sit back and support them. I mean, I see it like that, and it fits perfectly for me. Like I'm happy with that.
Mhm.
Since it's a little bit late, Josie, I let's leave this for tomorrow
Yeah,
or the
good
next
idea.
day. It will, and we'll cover out. Kevin, do you have something quick, and William, or can we go to bed and then we can?
Sorry about that,
Kevin, do you have
guys.
something? No, it's okay. Kevin, William, do you guys have something quick, or Kevin, William, are you asleep? Maybe we put them to sleep.
No. How are you, Steph?
Good. I'm a little tired. I want to hit the
That,
hay.
darling, you could run half the country on your blood pressure power.
Oh, my blood.
I-
I'm actually, my blood pressure is 100/70. It's pretty.
oh
It's
my
pretty.
Oh, that's pretty
goodness.
good.
Yeah, it's
Good,
very. Yeah, I have very
good
good
for
blood
you.
pressure. Thank God. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, thank God.
I have
Yeah.
nice veins,
Yeah,
just saying.
What'd you say, Josie?
I
What?
said
You
I
hear
said
me?
I have nice veins, just saying. Still, you'd love it.
What does that mean? What does that
No,
mean?
I thought you worked in healthcare, but nice veins is
Oh
I'm
yeah,
an
yeah.
athlete.
Oh, you're talking about to draw blood. I don't draw blood,
Yeah.
but for in the science and research stuff. But anyways, yeah, yeah.
yeah, phlebotomists have a hell of a time with me.
I'm sure, William. I'm
I
sure.
don't know a lot, but maybe I'll know more when I get a little older. And what I was wondering about was, or you were, of course, because I've made a commitment, and you know it, to you to be your vote, your protection, your other
Thank you.
voice, or whatever,
Thank you.
anytime, even though I don't know a damn thing, And I'm
You do
sorry
know a
about
lot.
that.
You know a lot.
No, I
Stealth, can
suppose.
I just say one thing before you go?
Sure, sure, Amichai.
Well, first of all, it was a pleasure meeting you, and
Me too.
I hopefully next time I'll talk a little bit more. I had there's a whole bunch of issues. I'm really interested to hear what you and the panel here think about. I just wanted to say thank you for the moral clarity. I feel that we're in an age of moral misunderstanding or moral inclarity, like the opposite, like a fogged moral state. So thank you for that, and I look forward to hearing a
I'm
little
not
bit more
always
here.
screaming, Amichai. I have a lot of phenomenal recorded spaces of very detailed, informative data. Today is a very aggravated day for three reasons. Tucker Carlson's stupid interview, which it just hurts America so much you have no idea. But anyways, that's one thing.
I don't understand like who he works for. I really don't.
It's an ideological thing for him. It's not even about the money. It's ideological. He thinks that America needs to be burned down and purified with fire, and he he looks at Qatar or Saudi Arabia when he goes there, and he thinks that it's idyllic, not for him, but idyllic. And why can't America be that way? And it all must be a foreign policy failure or whatever. There's some articles in Tablet magazine that lays out several positions on Tucker. I encourage every. I've read them at length in my spaces. They're on my feed. I didn't know about Tablet. I'm telling you, I'm not into all this stuff. Like this is not my area. I'm a science based person, so I wasn't like reading like I followed conservative media and Rush Limbaugh. Just a born conservative. But like I grew up learning like like religious Hasidus. This is for Amichai, you'll know what I'm talking about. Maybe others won't. So
Yes,
like
I do.
like okay, so like Chabad stuff. So like I learned critical thinking from understanding parables and applying them to modern times and understanding like the deeper meaning of things, right, from a spiritual perspective. So and then obviously I live in a modern world. I work amongst men and women of every single culture and faith and everything like that, and I've traveled the world, right? So for myself, I am able to look at things in a different way. What I'm going to say is if you read Tablet magazine, there's several articles. One, the most important is that I think it's Tucker, the arsonist, and it's a phenomenal breakdown of possibly where his mindset is at, and how he sees America and how he sees what he's doing.
The issue is still that it's not only him. There's a whole group of, and this connects to what you
Yeah,
guys
but
were talking
he's
about
he is the
yesterday.
influencer of it. So Amichai, you have to think of him as he's like the like the like if a Stonehenge, right? He's like the first stone, and then everything goes after that. So you'll see the influence arc. It's Candace Owens, and then obviously Steve Bannon
Bannon. I mean, Dave
and
Smith is a very,
Comic Dave Smith is
like,
something
fair.
different. Comic
He's
Dave Smith is part of the Libertarian
He's a
Party, which is
libertarian, yeah.
yeah, and that's
He's a
under
yeah,
weird
his
but
one.
influence op. So
they drill similar points, maybe from a
well,
different
it's
perspective.
always the Obama foreign policy. So if you look at okay, so Dave Smith's influence is Scott Thornton, who I didn't know who this schmuck was until he debated Mark Dubowitz on Lex Friedman. It is a 4-hour podcast. It is worth to see it. Scott Thornton's points, I've listened to all of them, and it's like a histrionic female. It's hard for me. It's like a cluster B bipolar female. It's hard for me to listen to a man act like that, but I listen purely for the research point because I want to hear his points so I can hear how they're countered to understand where the hysteria comes from, right? And then you listen to Mark Dubowitz, and I'm not like this crazy fan of Mark Dubowitz. Some people are quite a bit. He's spent 22 years of his life on Iran. These are like literally obsessed with Iran and everything about Iran. So, I like to know a lot about a lot of things, except for the things that is obviously something that I do professionally. I know a lot about that particular thing. But on general topics, I like to know a lot about a lot of things. He is a specialist on Iran. So him correcting Mark Dubowitz and going back and forth, excuse me, Mark Dubowitz correcting Scott Thornton. Scott Thornton is the notwar.com guy. So these are from the Tulsi Gabbard era when they and Jackson Hinkle went there and the Rand Pauls of the world, but these are and the Bernie Sanders especially and Senator Warren. These are the which is interesting in regards to the Russian influence. So how did I get down this line of thinking? You have to go to the Quaker movement. So the Quakers were infiltrated by the Russians, by the KGB back in the day, and any anti-war movement and any libertarian movement can get subverted, okay, by old school KGB propaganda or then by the CCP, and it could all be also be infected with the Islamic stuff. So the head of the Quaker Center in Philadelphia actually is the headquarters of where CARE is. Same office building. They're part of it, right? The Quaker movement, which was a peaceful movement, a non-war movement, they went first to Russia back in the day to provide aid during obviously after World War II and everything, because Quakers were peaceful people, right? But they were Christians, but they were like very they were all about not having war and they were just there to help. Well, the
Pacifist.
best
Yeah.
yeah. So what would you say?
Pacifist, like pacifist
Yeah,
Christians. Yeah.
pacifists. Yeah. Any movement that's a not war movement can be infiltrated by commies uh, and subverted in a way that's unimaginable. So there's a whole history about this. I did not know this occurred until I was researching the attack from the guy Elias Rodriguez who killed the 2 Israeli embassy employees in DC, because a woman named Kala Walsh, who ran Unity of Fields, one of the most extremist communist groups of the protest groups, had flown in just recently from Miami, from Cuba, because they're engaged in Cuban training camps that are pro-Palestinian stuff, which is the origin of these resistance movements. Like, I understand that it's maybe a lot to listen to. The Quakers started these camps. The Quakers were subverted by the Muslim Brotherhood. I don't know how to explain this to you. This sounds crazy. It was first by the Russians. This is all open source. You can I posted on my feed. I'm in shock. I can't even get over it. I did not know that Mayor Bass was part of the Cuban resistance movement, the Vencer Ramos, and they blew up the United States Capitol, an all-woman terrorist group which were trained in Cuba. Now, the only reason why I cared about Cuba is that's where Hezbollah has training camps and the CCP has their intelligence training camps. But that's where the best intelligence that were KGB trained were in Cuba. And they ran a whole intelligence ring.
out of Cuba and training. So now, if you're an 18-year-old in Connecticut, you can get recruited by these like leftist groups, and they fly you down to go to camp in Cuba. It's not like a camp like me and you were thinking, like summer camp, like Jewish summer camp for like a month in New York or in Pennsylvania or wherever. No, no, no. These are pure Marxist training camps where some are tactical and some are like coordinating and activism and how to structure yourself. And it's been happening since the Weather Underground and even maybe before that. Karen Bass went for 30 years to Cuba. Who would have known like that she was having full on communist training? And this is the thing. I did not understand that like there was a whole subset of Latin people from Latin South America and everything that were activists and in these university positions and they used the pro-Palestine movement to bring in the old school KGB, PLO resistance movements and subverted two, maybe three generations of people in this country. So, how did I get to this? Why did I find out about the Quaker stuff? I'm like, how are these camps, these Quaker camps, involved in sending 18-year-old kids that they identify in earlier camps, age 13 to 18? So, I went on their website. Anybody can go, it's on my feed. You go to the Quaker organization, they have different names. But if you go in there, it's all about Islam and the Muslim Brotherhood stuff and the CARE program and the Marxist communists and the anti-imperialist and the communist stuff, and the talking points sound like they're all like college professors from Columbia who've gone completely nuts. They're like Mamdani, but on steroids. Like, what the hell does this have to do with Quakerism? I thought Quakers sat and they sat quietly on pews and nobody talks, and then randomly a person sets up because they have like this vision of God comes into them and they want to say something, and they say something very close to whatever a Svengali would say, and they sit back down. This is my thought process of what the Quakers were. No offense to the Quakers in the room. I don't know how many are there. And I was like, what the hell is going on? What do you mean the Quaker movement is subverted by Muslim Brotherhood? I should write a movie about it. And what the hell does this girl Kala Walsh have to do with it?
Stealth,
These
where did
pictures.
you see the support of the Muslim Brotherhood for the Quakers? Where did you see that?
Oh my God! Look, it's all over my feed. I'll send it to you. I'll DM it to you, Amichai. Just yeah, you followed me, so I'll send you. It's all over. Just type in Quakers in my feed. You'll see like a whole thread about the Quakers. Barbie also did one. Who's usually my co-host up here. I gave her all the research stuff because she likes to nerd out and do all these threads, and I don't know how to use AI very well in terms of like organizing the threads. So I just give her. I'm very good at research, and then I pass it off to somebody to do the hard work. Anyways. But so the Quakers were infiltrated. Their actual address is CARE has their offices inside of there. It's not the only organization. SJP is in there as well. Like this, it's a whole infrastructure, right? And if you look back at the videos of of Jackson Hinkle in Vermont with Tulsi Gabbard, which is the not war movement, right? Because she comes from a religious background, was like this, anti-war kind of interesting. Her background's very interesting with Tulsi. But anyways, and so she's very against Islamic radicalization, but she's very against all types of war because she's like, what do you call those? The ones that the Hare Krishna kind of types, right? A sect of Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Anyways, right? So
No, you're right. Yeah.
what would you say, Vaughn?
No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Hare Krishna and stuff. So if you go look at the infrastructure of the not war movements are mostly subverted by the Russians. That's where they start. And they've done it for, I don't know, 50 years, maybe 60 years, would you say? So it's very interesting. And there's a whole influence arch there. Had I not researched it and not seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. So how the hell do I have a picture of Tulsi Gabbard going surfing with Jackson Hinkle, who ends up being like one of the influencers for Russia and Dugin? Don't ask. It's been a long whirlwind of knowledge on learning on this stuff. And she's like anti-war, and now she's the head of our UN.
Stealth, just when you say Russian influence, do you mean financial influence?
Oh no,
Financial, political, a
political,
lot.
like yes, like structural, like
I'll tell you why I'm
ideological.
asking, because like in Israel we have a major issue with foreign governments funneling tremendous amount of monies into NGOs. All
Yeah,
these
I know.
human rights
America did a majority
organizations,
of it.
all
America
these
did a
human rights organizations that get cited by these people like
yes.
B'Tselem and Human Rights Watch
Oh
and
yeah.
and their money, tremendous amount of money comes in from the EU, and I
Yes.
never heard of like Russian money coming in. I wonder. I don't know.
You'd be
I wonder if it's
surprised, Amichai.
connected.
A lot of it was American. We know that, but because we traced. We have all the threads on all the money that came in under USAID into Israel. That was put out by. If you want all that info, I don't know if you need it for professional reasons or if you're just research, but I can send you kind of where to start on all that. But now that we're able, because of Doge, to go through what USAID sent in to all those organizations and NGOs, it's significant. I know they're going to have a congressional hearing on it, and it's something actively that I know this administration, I know Caroline Glick and they're going to have a congressional hearing to see that kind of money. But there's a
Yeah, so
lot.
Israel, they tried to block it as well from getting into Israel through the Knesset, but then it gets to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is in Israel is totally controlled
Yeah,
by like the woke left,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
block, and there's a whole battle going on around that. This is what the whole
yeah. There
judicial
has
fight
to
was
be
about.
there. Yeah, the EU. You have to demand from the EU um, full information of where that money is coming from, because I'm sure it is coming from entities you would not be happy with.
Oh, the EU
Uh,
won't do it. Yeah.
Well, the EU, I don't know what if there's a remedy to get this information from the EU. The EU had a huge Qatari scandal, right?
Yeah,
It's fair to
they did.
say
Yes.
that there's money being funded through Qatar through EU organizations to destroy Israel also from the EU portion. Amichai, that's my question. You guys have to have zero NGO funding into the country, incomplete, unless there's full disclosure by the NGOs where the money is coming from and full access. So you may have to only designate that you can only have money coming in, let's say from the US, because you can get access to that information. Whatever country guarantees the like transparency. Otherwise, you don't let any money in at all. Unless it's an Israeli citizen and they're Jewish and they live in the country and the money is auditable and checkable. I feel the same thing in America. I don't want any money coming in or out of here without every single dollar traced. Otherwise, nope, not even the UN, nothing like that. So that's why I was very big on Israel blocking the WHO from having an influence in Israel, Pfizer having an influence in any external until you can clarify what's going on. So that's the problem. So we have all that with what the US has given um, because of the Doja investigation. But just going back to this whole situation with the Quaker stuff and all that. So why did I get focused on Cuba? There was a famous counterintelligence guy who was working researching the Muslim Brotherhood. It was part of the Holy Land Foundation trials. And I started to see all these connections from all these radical groups that are protesting all over the US and in the universities. Always Cuba comes up, always, over and over and over again. I'm like, what the hell is going on in Cuba? I know you have the Hezbollah training camps. I know that they send you through Cuba to Venezuela. You spend 6 months there, and then you can get a Venezuelan passport. You can dump your Middle East passport on the ground. They give you a Venezuelan passport, and then you're able to make it from there into the US under Venezuelan passports. I was more focused on terrorism. But there's a 2015 Political article. It's on my feed, and it's about Obama suppressing the Cassandra Project, which is basically the Iranian Hezbollah influence op in South America that was dealing with drug trafficking, human trafficking, and money laundering through the U.S., through Lebanon, through all of Europe, Africa, South Africa. Right, that's why South Africa got so Hamas pro, because of the Hamas's relationship there and funding inside South Africa. That's why you start having them saying "kill the Boer." That comes from the Hamas training talking points. It doesn't happen organically, right? So, anyways, there's so much more about what's going on in South Africa, from like the Iranian nuclear reactor they're trying to build there. It's a whole other thing. But if you look at the infrastructure between Cuba, Venezuela, and you look at this is all just research. You can Google it. It's on my feed, or Google it publicly, or Grok it, whatever you want to do. Grok is not always. I use like 3 different forms of AI, and then I use Wikipedia. I look at many resources, but there's all these articles and everything about the suppression under the Obama administration of what was happening in South America and the DEA, the CIA, the FBI, every agency in the US was working on this. And Obama stopped all of that because Hezbollah is an asset of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and he was not wanting to upset them because it was all about appeasing them. So any one of their proxies, any one of their assets, so the Houthis are an asset, Hezbollah is an asset, the RUGC militias inside of Syria was their asset, the Shia Iranian-backed militias in Iraq is their asset. That has to do with their, like, their circle, their crescent that they were making. So Obama was like, you can't touch any of their assets, their equity products, including South America, even though they're money laundering into Canada, drug trafficking, all this stuff, right? 30 years of heroin distribution in the US. Think about the African American and Hispanic communities that died in the United States from the heroin brought in from the Iranians, and the methadone labs. You remember how everybody's kids were dying from heroin? All of that was coming from Iran, imported through our ports in the US. None of that wants to be discussed by anybody, right? There's great documentaries on YouTube on the Cassandra Project, very detailed in Lebanon. It's phenomenal, like the history. It's on my feed as well. I played it live in recorded spaces. Like one night I played it like all the 3 hours. It's only 1 hour each thing, but so much content in there. And from there you can go and grab all the research behind it. But these are like very famous DA, FBI guys that worked for like the federal like the financing stuff to find all the money laundering. Money laundering is where all the secrets are held for all these terrorist groups. That's how they do it. Now we have the Bitcoin or whatever shitcoin that they're using. So God knows how we're going to find out about all that stuff. But, or their cold wallets. I don't even know what any of that means. All I know is there's experts that are tracking that stuff. But you just found, like, now in Scotland, right? They just pulled over a truck with 150, a boat with 150 million, God knows how much money's worth of cocaine, and it's related to Hezbollah and Iran, right? And they're bringing in all that into Scotland. So that's how they make their money. It's fake Islamic bullshit wrapped up in really a global money laundering, drug trafficking organization throughout the world, so they can propagate and do whatever they need to do, their terrorism, I don't know, to engorge themselves with the riches of the world. But it all starts with the PLO and the KGB project. And they used Occupy, like Palestine, as the Occupy Wall Street. That's where it started. So we had a phenomenal space where we tracked back the Occupy Wall Street movement all the way creating the Occupy, like occupied Palestine. That verbiage, the narrative, it's a dialectic, but it's an actual op. And they were able to get it to come in from the left, starting with those grassroots protest group movements like they did during the Vietnam War stuff, also the Vietnam War op, right? Brilliant. But it was the Vietnamese and the Chinese that helped Arafat. Actually, I don't know if you guys know this. Arafat has a huge shrine to him in Vietnam. Please Google this, and you'll see why. So it's Josie. It's crazy. Your boyfriend who's Vietnamese should know this, but the Vietnamese and the head of the Vietnamese military, the general, Vinh Minh, whatever his name was, he's the one who instructed Arafat, you need to move it from it being seen as a terrorist organization to seeing it as a political resistance movement, like the Viet Cong was, and how they influenced the college students in America to actually stop the Vietnam War, so that these poor people in Vietnam are still under communist rule, as we know, right? And they're still very, very heavily controlled by the Chinese. And people don't understand that. That's why so many of them came here. But you have to see how they use the old school KGB tactics of influence, because the Russians were all over, as you know, all over Vietnam as well. They use that to create the narrative, and they move the PLO right to this Palestinian movement, and that's where it all starts. And from there, they brought it into the United States as the resistance movement. That's why you see these phrases like, rape is resistance, these horrible things. These would never be in our nomenclature. There's no way you can come from the women's movement, right? The women's right movement to where we are now in just such a short few years, where now rape is resistance, where you don't believe the atrocities that were done on October 7th when
Well,
they
it's
lied
like
to you.
the Queers for Palestine movement, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah. Well, so that's the problem, right? So the Red Green Alliance, right? How are you going to get jihadists who, kill women and hang gays and, rape children to get along with the LGBTQ crowd, who thinks they're dolphins one day and have cat litter boxes in high schools the next. And, you're having the world break down because, oh my God, they're going to kill my child's going to commit suicide if I don't trans my child at 9 years old or at 4 years old, or validate their feelings at 7 when they think that they're, I don't know, a dolphin. So you think about what happened on the left. The Muslim Brotherhood, when they came in and they did an analysis, there's a huge conference about this. I'm sure maybe some people don't know. Muslim Brotherhood, when they're in the U.S., they had a big conference in D.C., I think, or Chicago, wherever the hell it was.
Chicago.
Probably. Thank you. And that's where they said, there's no way Muslim Brotherhood is going to merge with the right. They're too conservative and too Christian. We have to focus on the left because they're more Marxist and communist. So, we'll teach them about we'll focus on the resistance side, and that we're the oppressed and they're the colonizers and the colonialists and the anti-imperialist narrative. And that was it. It was off to the races. The problem is a lot of the LGBTQ people know what happens to them. That's why you see a lot of them out there, but not like a full blown, right? But a lot of that is not organic. It's paid for. So you have to understand that portion of it. And then the real radicals are the ones that are trained in Cuba and in Venezuela in terms of the African Americans.
Stealth, I'm really interested. I mean, this is very interesting. I wasn't aware of many of these things you're saying, and I'm going to read up on some of them. It's very interesting. I mean, the whole connection to all these different organizations is very interesting. It makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure you follow the money, you learn about a lot of things. The issue, I'm really interested, and I don't know if you have time for this, but maybe next time. Is like how did the decision by the Trump administration regarding the Iranian regime was very interesting in my eyes. I mean, I think he was influenced very much from his base, that he didn't feel that he wants to push this too much. I mean, the at least the Iranian opposition people are
I'll
like,
tell you this. So yeah, so the Iran regime change thing. First of all, they were testing to see what the response would be on the ground in Iran. We know that they had already assets between the Kurds, the Baluch, and other groups on Iran on the ground, like dissident groups and people from inside the IRGC military. There was already people, I guess, working on 20 years on this. This is not like a new thing, right? So like this is something the U.S. and European countries were very much in sync, and they knew what's coming, right? For a long time. The French, that's why all the Europeans, everybody was like, yeah, go do it. Take out the nuclear program. You all across the board, everybody said yes. You're very surprising. The Europeans were all for it. The English, the French, everybody, which was unusual, right? So that's why I don't think that was picked up on, right, by a lot of people.
well, they see a danger as well. I mean, when it's so
100%.
blatant. But I was just trying to figure out like the fact that the United States, they came in, they gave like a small push, but then they halted the whole thing.
Yep.
I mean, if there was ever a regime change that had to happen,
Yeah.
it was this one. And I know that like it seems like the American public has been very um uh, bruised from the past, and I understand that.
But there
But
was regime changes that the Americans and other countries did that were very successful before.
exactly, that's exactly the point. I mean, the Imperial Japan and Nazi Germany, these were regimes that had to be changed, and I mean, at a
So
tremendous cost.
you're right, but
But in this case, it was just very peculiar that the Trump administration decided to slow it down. And I know from the Israeli side that Israel is continuing to push for regime change in a quiet way. I mean, this is something that I know, but it seems that the Americans have pulled out, and I'm just very like
So
trying to
I
understand.
don't
Was it
think
was
that
it only the base? Was it only his base, or was it more also
no,
international interest, Chinese interest, Russian interest?
it's
so I'll tell you what it
okay. Go
was.
ahead.
The Gulf countries freaked out about having like an actual regime change of leadership because they're worried about
Who
themselves.
freaked out? Who freaked out?
The Gulf countries, including Saudi, UAE, all of them, because that means you could
Why?
easily do
Why
it
did
to
they
them.
freak out? I mean,
Oh,
Iran is their
because
arch enemy, also.
no, but it doesn't matter. They're worried about regime change in their own country. They figured if you're going to do it in Iran, you're going to do it to us. So they're very sensitive to this.
I'm not sure about.
The,
I
the
don't
on the
think.
American
I don't know. It seems as stealth. I'll tell you why this troubles
But
me,
you would
because it
have to point
seems to
out
me that
Khomeini, and Khomeini is considered he's considered like a god actually to the Shia world. It's very
he's like the
complex
Pope
with him.
for them.
It's like the
Yeah.
Pope. It's like if God forbid somebody was going to take out a Pope. That's what it's like, Amichai.
Yeah,
It's
I understand that,
they
but
couldn't make him a martyr because then you consider upsetting the entire Muslim world, right? So you have
well,
to.
only the Muslim Shia.
Yeah, but he's still a very big cleric, even though he's only Shia. There's still that, you know how the Muslims will like. We had some of the Saudis come in and they explained to us that after when Iran started to strike Qatar, like even though Qatar is on the outs, all the Gulf countries and all of the Jordan and everybody kind of rallied together behind the scenes because they were shocked to see rockets from Iran going into Qatar and Bahrain and the Gulf countries. It freaks them out. They don't want this. This is their biggest fear. You have to go back and think what the Kuwaitis were like when Saddam Hussein invaded, and now they act very squirrely because they're afraid of things. Also in the UAE, there's 2 million Iranians living in there, right? And that's a threat, a terrorist concern for them as well, right? So to take out Khomeini, which is such a big Shia cleric, and you've got like people like deify him in such a way, it's dangerous for the Muslim world. It's like you're taking out Muhammad from Mecca for them. So you have to understand the religious implications as well.
And on the American
So
point that he was asking about, we had what, 14 years of war, right? 14 years of war. That's the most current thing in the American mindset. Japan and Germany is far from anyone's like purview of like seeing a good regime change being happening. So we have 14 wars. The only thing we got out of it was a rerun of Vietnam debacle of leaving Afghanistan, and Iraq is kind of okay. I say kind of with like big quotation marks. So no one wants to see us go to war or quote unquote have a regime change, but that's not really the underlying sentiment of the Americans. But you got people like Dave Smith, Tulsi Gabbard, and a whole bunch of other people who are like no more wars, who are really being elevated with that viewpoint here in the United States. Like they're constantly running that same mantra. Like we shouldn't have no more wars. Look back at Afghanistan. We should have had no more wars. Look back at Iraq. And that's all you hear. They don't talk about, if you mention like Japan was a great uh, example of like regime change in the way the United States did it. Nope, no one wants to hear it. Like no one cares, and it's so sad because you're absolutely right. Like we could do something about it, but it's not. I forgot who said it in the space before stuff that said that the Americans want to win. We don't want to lose anymore. If we can't have a win, we're just not going to pull the trigger on
yeah,
it.
I think it was Jonathan.
Jonathan, yes.
Yeah, so Jonathan, I think was talking about it. They needed that quick win to show that they can end something in
מה
12
הבעיה? רגע,
days.
רגע, אבל נראה לי עדיף שרוני תוביל, לא? למה?
You got a hot mic on your thigh.
הוא יודע.
Okay, he's got a hot mic. Um, s- so I understand why he's asking the question. It's hard for people to understand like what
Hmm.
happened um with that. But yeah, there's so many. I think there's a lot of things we don't know about. Also, let's be honest, Vaughn. I think there's a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't
I know.
know
There's.
what's cooking.
I'm sure if Trump didn't have someone whisper in his ear, he would have regime changed the hell out of Iran. That's my opinion on that one.
Maybe it's possible. I don't know.
But the bad taste of Afghanistan is like the worst. Like everyone still remembers it. Like even I'm still
Yeah,
upset
but we
about
didn't
it.
do regime change in We didn't get rid of all the Taliban in
I know they
Afghanistan.
just
That's the
retook the
point.
country, and that's what people. That was the biggest. Like I kept hearing that point be put from like Dave Smith and others were saying, "Look at Afghanistan. We went there to change their government, and the Taliban is back. It's going to be the same thing in Iran. It's going to be the same thing in Iran." That's all I kept hearing during that time, that whole week.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think I should play the Lex Friedman podcast with Dubowitz. So on Saturday night, I played for, and Josie, you should grab the recording from Saturday night or you just grab the podcast. It's Elbridge Colby, who's he, works for Hegseth. He's third in line at the DoD. It's his foreign policy perspective on striking Iran, and then there's two other people. It's from 12 years ago, and you should see these are like three of the top minds of how to handle what to do in Iran 12 years ago when there was another big threat concern over the nuclear program, and this was before the JCPOA, right? Because it was 2012, and it was in the run up to it. and what the strike looks like now. But Mark Dubowitz, which I was talking about with the Lex Friedman podcast that came out last week, I know it's lengthy, but it's worth it. He systematically cuts through the Dave Smith narrative because Dave Smith learns from Scott Thornton. Scott Thornton's the guy who he debates on Lex Friedman. It's kind of like the first of his kind. There's so much meat on that bone, and I really do feel like I need to re-listen to the one I played for everybody on Saturday night, where he just opened up and I let it play for an hour and 20 minutes. If you really want to understand the thought process of why to strike, why they chose not to strike, what the different reasons were, regime change or not regime change, how it would be done. There's people that have like game theoried all of this out from not only from our government, but other governments for years, right? This is like a national security thing where everybody knows there's a problem with Iran for many, many years. So people have roundtabled this like at very high levels internally in the government. And there's all these options on the table, right? For escalation, for de-escalation, in terms of how to handle it. Rich Goldberg is an expert on the JCPOA. I highly, highly encourage people to watch Caroline Glick with Rich Goldberg go through. Oh God, you guys are going to make me want to play it now because I do have to sleep, but
You don't
kids are
sleep.
killing us.
Stop lying.
And well, at this point, I'm like, when you pass the
Yeah,
tiredness,
I know.
I
I'm,
hate
I'm
that.
the same way. It's like 3 a.m. for me.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I'll play you like just 5 minutes of it just to get you guys to. It's on my feed. I've played it a bunch of time in my space.
What
Because
are you putting? What are you putting on, Stealth? I'm
so
sorry, I
just
missed. I
look
was
up the
having trouble here getting back on.
No, it's fine. So look at Rich Goldberg and Caroline Glick a year ago, right? This is about the $6 billion ransom that the U.S. had to pay to Iran because they kidnapped 5 U.S. hostages, and this was September. This was September of 2023, before the October 7th attack, where we gave that money. So this is just to hear a glimpse of it, so you understand what it was like dealing with the Iranians. So Rich Goldberg is an expert. He worked for Donald Trump. He created the infrastructure around maximum pressure campaign. There's a ton of hearings, congressional and Senate hearings on him as well. He's brilliant. This is just listen to this. Just listen just for 10 minutes and your minds are going to be blown. Being held in Evin prison in Tehran. To the United States, and in exchange, the United States is overseeing the unfreezing of some $6 billion that have been frozen in Iraq. That's more than $1 billion per hostage. They're all still in Iran, awaiting the continued stages in this deal. And it would appear that this move was part of a larger set of understandings related to Iran's nuclear weapons program between the Biden administration and the Islamic Republic. I thought that under the circumstances, the first person that I should talk to is Richard Goldberg from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Richard was involved, in charge, I think, of Iran's nuclear dossier in the National Security Council under President Trump, and he is an expert. He's been a guest on our show in the past to discuss these kinds of issues specifically. So I was delighted that Richard was able to join us this week. So first and foremost, welcome back, Richard, to the Carolyn Glick Show. Looking forward to the meet. You're probably pretty capable of doing it systematically as a lecture, but all the same, this is an interview. So let's just start off the first stage of our discussion. Let's discuss the ransom deal just as a standalone thing so that we understand it, and then put it into the larger framework of what's being negotiated. So first of all, how much money is moving into the pockets of the Iranian regime? And then after we go through that, I want to understand why these specific funds have been frozen. And how many more billions of dollars are still frozen, waiting to be unfrozen? So can we start with just those questions, and then we'll move on to the next tranche? So the big announcement is $6 billion that has been under lock and key in South Korea for a number of years. This is money that during the era of sanctions relief, and then that period of time where President Trump had withdrawn from the nuclear deal, but had not actually reimposed all U.S. sanctions. He left
a lot of doors and windows. You know, everything moving forward for countries to keep importing Iranian oil, including South Korea, and the terms, which were actually enshrined in a U.S. law that I helped write over a decade ago, stated that any money paid for that oil by South Korea or India or China or whoever is importing had to be put into an escrow account in that country and basically put on lockdown, could only be used for humanitarian trade, food, medicine, medical supplies within that country alone. So Iran would have to use that account to say, we want this kind of medicine from South Korea and use that money. However, once those waivers were taken away, once the exceptions to the oil sanctions were removed by President Trump in 2019, that's when maximum pressure actually started. Basically, the money was off limits. It was locked down. And so you had what had been reported to be at least $7 billion in that escrow account. The number now being used in this deal is $6 billion. And that was 7 billion. It was 7 billion total, or 7 billion in South Korea specifically. 7 billion just in South Korea. Iraq. Okay,
So what they're talking about is in August of 2023, so Iran kidnapped 5 Americans. I don't know why Tucker didn't ask, the president of Iran about this, but so they kidnapped 5 Americans, holding them in the Evin jail, which is the one that Israel struck the doors of so people could escape was the hope. And this is they kidnapped these 5 Americans, and this is what the deal is between the Biden administration, which is the Blinken, Sullivan, all these morons, and they were trying to give money to Iran. So you're hearing this story, okay?
Iraq in the present deal? No, this specific one on the hostages is for $6 billion out of South Korea. I know there's a lot of numbers. I'll explain it. It's moving fast. So I guess if it was last year in the press, we were going to do this deal for $7 billion for 3 or 4 hostages. Now we've done it for $6 billion for 5 hostages. So I guess the White House would tell you they got a really good deal. But actually, $6 billion for 5 Americans is $1.2 billion each. And just to put this in context, the last time we paid Iran for hostages was alongside the last Iran nuclear deal in 2015. Barack Obama paid $1.7 billion for 4 Americans, about $425 million in American back then. So we've basically tripled the price of an American for the Iranians over 8 years. So apparently inflation has also come to the hostage-taking industry from Tehran. But seriously, this is a very bad precedent to set, because it's not just Iran. We know that Iran got $1.7 billion 8 years ago for 4 Americans, and then turned around during JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, and took more Americans. But we also know that China is watching. Russia is watching. Russia has already seized an American journalist this year, Evan Gershkovich. His price tag just went up. China just enacted an espionage law, and the State Department is warning people about traveling to China. You could be arrested if you're a business leader. That may start happening. Just for the deal itself. So, also, who negotiated this? Because Robert Malley, I know, was suspended, or his security clearance was suspended. But after it was suspended, I believe in April or May, he continued. He said, "I'm just doing the hostage. That's all. So it's not classified. We're just talking about dollars and cents." And I know he came out of the mothballs last week to announce how happy he was with this deal going through, and what a great achievement it is that the United States has achieved this deal. So he was the one who negotiated this? So he started the negotiation on this process over the last 2 years. This was, if you look back at the press reports, remember last year when I was on the podcast last, and we had a frenzy of media reports that we were in Vienna, that all the parties were in Vienna, the Europeans, the Russians, the Chinese, the Americans, the Iranians, and we were going to do this big deal. It was going to be worse than the JCPOA. Well, if you look back at all the leaks that came out of that deal, one of the first stages of the deal was this hostage deal.
was $7 billion at the time for the release of American hostages. Why? Because it would be separated from a nuclear agreement and therefore not subject to congressional review first, which is mandated by law. So that big deal fell apart last year. The Americans were continuing to beg the Iranians for any kind of deal as their program continued to race forward, rather than returning to any sort of maximum pressure or threatening military force. And so this concept, this framework was always on the shelf waiting to be put in play the minute there was some larger deal going on. The details of this are the $6 billion at some point will get transferred from South Korea, and we've been told they will be transferred to Doha, Qatar, and a bank account there that the Qataris control, with U.S. somehow having at least ostensible jurisdiction. There are sanctions governing this to tell the Qataris what they can and can't process. And then the Qataris will work with the Iranians to process any transaction that they want for non-sanctioned goods, which is to say budget subsidies for their imports, which is to say $6 billion here, they can use $6 billion there. Isn't it, though, sort of a kind of reenactment or implementation of the deals and that you helped to draft, because it's saying, well, you can only use it for humanitarian goods. It's not going to fund. And obviously the answer to that, well, is everything is fungible. You're freeing them up $6 billion for this. They'll use it for that. But is that, I mean, that's basically the justification that the Biden administration is putting out for this thing, right? So right now, these funds are not being used. They have been sitting there in escrow because the bank in South Korea has been told they can't process funds from this account. Why is that? Twofold. One, the sanctions law, and there's no oil exceptions in place, so the money is trapped in escrow. And number two, the account holder is the National Iranian Oil Company and or the Central Bank of Iran. Both of those institutions in 2019 and then 2020 were subjected to terrorism sanctions because they financed the IRGC Quds Force. So that is an element of controversy here. We're taking money out of a bank account that was used to finance terrorism. And we are basically breaking terrorism sanctions in the United States to move the money that is inaccessible to make it accessible and used towards Iran's import budget. Right? So they have some amount of money, and the point of our sanctions has always been to tell them, we're going to go after any accounts that are tied to the IRGC, that are tied to your nuclear program, that are tied to sanctions entities. We're going to squeeze off your revenue sources and force you to make choices. Will you still fund the IRGC and the Quds Force? Will you still fund terrorism, Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad? Will you still send weapons to Russia to use against Ukraine? Will you still fund the Basij to crack down on women and the people of Iran? Will you do all these things? Or will you use this money for your people, for your economy, for actual normal ways of living? And so if you give them $6 billion additional budget to use towards their living expenses and their operating expenses, then that frees up $6 billion for all the other illicit activities because you have not forced them to make the choice. So that's true, but we already know the answer. I mean, we know that in 2015 they used their funds to fight to pay for terrorism. Those $1.7 billion that came through in cash from the Obama administration were used to finance and massively expand the operations of the Houthis, Nasrallah, and the Syrians and the Palestinians and Hamas and Islamic Jihad. And we also know, I just read a report this morning that Hassan Nasrallah just met with the head of the Islamic Jihad in Beirut, that the head of the Quds Force was in Lebanon, I think last week on the 10th, and so was the speaker of the Iranian parliament, who met with his Hezbollah parallel Nabi Berri, or Hezbollah controlled. So it's all happening once again, that the United States is giving this money. And that's one thing. And the other thing, of course, is that I think it was from your Twitter feed that I saw the first time that the I don't remember his name, but whatever, the spokesman or the ostensible spokesman for the Iranian negotiating team made a statement where he said, there are absolutely no restrictions on our use of these funds, and we won't accept any restrictions on the use of these funds. So
The Iranians are already saying, for what it's worth, that the Biden administration officials, Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and others are simply lying when they're presenting the deal on these hostages as something that isn't going to be used to finance continued terrorism by the Iranian regime. Well, I would say they're both misleading because what the Iranians are trying to spin and what the administration is not admitting is that the money will be quite flexible in its use. This pot of money cannot go to terrorism, right? Okay, what a great win. Okay, yeah, obviously this $6 billion would go to terrorism. It frees up a different $6 billion to go to terrorism, which is where the duplicity is. But in this situation, what can the money be used on? Not just food and medicine, which is what the White House is saying. It can also be used for any other purpose that is somehow non-illicit in nature by itself, but is allowing Iran access to cash to free themselves of the burdens of their debts. We're talking about dues to the United Nations, dues to conferences, debts that they owe to foreign nations, all kinds of things that we've already seen being paid out of money in Iraq, which we should talk about because this is the second tranche of money that we're making available. But we've already seen the track record of money being made available to Iran in Iraq, and that's how we know what this money will be used for. So what do we know about that? Tell us about that. Okay, so this is a hostage deal. It's a ransom. It's the largest ransom in U.S. history. It has a bunch of implications, like I talked about, for both Iranian hostage taking, Russian, Chinese hostage taking in the future, etc. But it's also part of a nuclear deal that is already underway. One that was negotiated in secret, without notifying Congress, without giving Congress a vote, as it's required to do so under a law that was passed in 2015. And they're doing it methodically in ways to ostensibly claim there is no deal and all this money isn't tied to a deal. This is $6 billion. Several weeks ago, we learned through press reports that the U.S. had made available $10 billion and then allowed Iraq to move that $10 billion that was stuck in Baghdad to Oman, a bank account in Oman, under the exact same type of rules and restrictions that we're seeing now play out for the Qatari bank account where the South Korean money will go. So we're at $16 billion that we know of that has now been made accessible to Iran. How long ago? This was reported when? June and July. We started seeing reports of first a $2.76 billion release of funds that was used to pay off a bunch of Iranian debts. Then the Iraqis came forward and said, actually, we now have given Iran access to all $10 billion that we have here. Then the Iraqis and Iranians announced a new oil for gas swap that is not allowable under U.S. sanctions, can only happen if the Treasury Department has authorized it. And then finally, a new waiver came out in just the last few weeks where the State Department announced they had given Iraq clearance to move all of Iran's money and all future payments to Iran, by the way, because Iraq imports Iranian electricity and natural gas and pays for it on an ongoing basis. That money had been going into escrow in Baghdad under our rules. That money now goes to a bank account in Oman for Iran's use. So we're at 16 billion and more. Why is Iraq buying Iranian gas? They produced it. Iraq cannot produce electricity on its own. Iraq is completely dependent on Iran for electricity. It is one of the tragedies of Iraq. It is something that has been a priority for the United States to solve for the last 5 or 6 years. It became a huge priority under the Trump administration because it was an obvious loophole in our sanctions. And we couldn't just turn the lights off in Baghdad. And so the accommodation that was reached was we will work with the Iraqis to find them alternative sources of electricity, looking to the north and other places. We were leaning heavily on the Turks to try to figure out what could be done. But in the meantime, since that can't happen overnight, we would allow the Iraqis to pay money into an escrow account in Baghdad on very similar terms as what I described for South Korea. That money kept building up in Baghdad to the sum of $10 billion or more. I've seen a report of $11 billion. And it's an ongoing buildup because every time they import more electricity or natural gas to fund power plants, they have to give more money back. So that is
the pot of money that's already been released and made available and will be on an ongoing basis. And this is a problem. This is now $16 billion. And the question is there more on the way? And the answer is yes. We know what the contours of this deal already are because it was leaked out weeks ago. The lead White House negotiator for this deal, Brett McGurk, the National Security Council's chief for Middle East policy, who had been working with Malley all along, but now Malley sidelined by his FBI investigation. McGurk's taking the lead. He goes to Oman and has a secret meeting in May with the Omanis and says, please pass a message to the Iranians and say, we will start releasing money of various kinds that will appear disconnected from a nuclear deal. We will never acknowledge there's a nuclear deal. You'll get the money out of Iraq. You'll get the money out of South Korea. You'll get money out of the International Monetary Fund to the tune of $7 billion. You'll get money from other places, perhaps, that has your money, like Japan. And in exchange, please slow your enrichment. Do not go to 90% weapons-grade uranium production. Slow your 60% to the extent you can, and we won't have a crisis between now and the 2024 presidential election. And if you could, we'd really want to see our people released. We should do a hostage deal out of this. We don't want you to attack Americans in Iraq and Syria. And please don't start providing short-range ballistic missiles to Russia. The armed drones are okay, but not the short-range ballistic missiles. That would be bad. And we won't snap back the UN sanctions in October. We'll let the missile embargo expire at the UN. And we won't do anything about the big site that you're building underground by the Natanz enrichment facility that, according to all press reports and commercial satellite imagery, is going to be farther underground and more hardened than the Fordo underground facility, which is to say, we will pay you billions upon billions of dollars to build up your capability right under the nuclear threshold. Use that money for God knows what bad things against the United States and our allies, so long as you just don't cross the 90% Rubicon before the 2024 elections. And let me tell you something. If that underground site is completed and they have all the capability, turnkey, to build a nuclear weapon, and they move their production into that underground facility, it's game over. It will be game over. The Iranians win. I don't understand how they didn't win already. I mean, this week, Benny Weinthal, your colleague at FDD, and my good colleague in the journalism field, published an article in Fox or the Jerusalem Post, I don't remember which, where he went over again we've spoken about it on this podcast in the past about the intelligence reports from the Netherlands and Sweden and Germany, I believe, about a very small slice of Iran's nuclear operations in Europe, and the Dutch concluded that the Iranians are moving towards nuclear testing this year. So I sort of fail to understand. This is, in a way, it's really just, it is very much the 2015 deal in its essence, in the sense that the 2015 deal was geared towards kicking the can down the road in order not to force to legitimize Iran's nuclear weapons program, but to push it away so that it wouldn't be on Obama's watch. And here it's the same thing. We want to win an election. We're going to pretend that you're not doing what you're doing. We're going to enable you to continue doing what you're doing. We're going to make it even easier for you to continue doing what you're doing, both financially and in terms of pushing away your true adversaries, not us, we're fake ones, but the Saudis and the Israelis. And we're not going to report any of this to Congress because we're going to do it all by subterfuge. So in a way, it's very, I mean, they did that in 2014 when they insisted that it wasn't a treaty, even though it was, and therefore didn't need to be ratified by 2/3 of the Senate. And here they're just doing it in a different way, but it's the same thing. Yeah, what I think bothers me the most and should bother everyone is the subterfuge part that you mentioned. We can have a very strong policy disagreement. We can have a strong ideological disagreement. I can, pick apart this deal and say why it's bad for national security. They can pick apart my arguments and say you don't have an alternative, though I do. And I would say in the end, the way that they've gone about doing this, the amount of hours it must have taken lawyers at the State Department, the Treasury Department, and the White House to come up with this scheme is real. If you've worked inside, this had to have taken tasking from the top in multiple interagency meetings to say, here's the marching orders. Find a way to release as much money as possible in a way where we can claim it's not part of a nuclear deal and avoid submitting this to Congress. Go. Come back to us. And what did they come back with? Well, we have these energy payments in Iraq. And Trump allowed energy payments to go forward into escrow. And Iraq's getting squeezed by the Iranians over this money. So we'll just renew the waiver that's been issued for months. We'll modify the waiver and just say it's just a tweak to the old waiver. And we'll let the money go out of Baghdad to Oman. And we'll just say, hey, it's an Iraqi issue. It's not a nuclear program issue. It's just an Iraqi issue. Oh, okay. Oh, we have a hostage deal. We can trade $6 billion for hostages. It's not tied to the nuclear program. It's tied to the hostages. Okay, so there's another $6 billion. The IMF already approved this new special drawing rights round as part of the COVID relief and economic stimulus idea. So the Iranians technically have access. Right. So every country who's a member of the IMF can take their draw. Iran's draw totals about $6.7 billion from this round. By the way, this whole concept of special drawing rights is outrageous, and Congress should put an end to it. But be that as it may, they say, oh, we can't really stop this. It's Iran's money already. The IMF approved something. All members get it. We're not giving them the cash. They'd have to go to the Qataris and work out a way to trade these SDRs, as they're called, kind of like monopoly money, for cash. But, oh, that's right. The Qataris are already in on it. They're part of this deal. So this is just an IMF arrangement. Nothing to do with the nuclear program. They'll get another $7 billion. And on it goes. And nothing gets submitted to Congress. These waivers get issued, and everybody says, oh, okay. Oh, I guess, the waiver just got issued. Nothing we can do about it. And so they have designed a way to get around billions of dollars for some nuclear concession, however tiny and outrageous, without submitting it to Congress, which is the exact requirement of the Iran Nuclear Agreement Review Act of 2015. So I saw an interview with the chairman of the House Foreign Relations Committee, Mike McCall, where he was saying something was rather similar to what you were saying if he was on Face the Nation on Sunday.